All right, you're very welcome back. We're talking rugby. Dave McIntyre, one of the standout performers of the entire Six Nations, is here with us. Dave, well done. You were the Jacob Stockdale of the commentary world.
Record breaking.
Yeah.
Going down in history.
I'd say more your Dan Levy, though. Underappreciated, but like those who are really, the aficionados get it.
I'll take that. I will take that. A lot of the unseen work.
Yeah.
The donkey work.
Well, unheralded, but actually brilliant.
Right, well, I'll definitely take that.
That works, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're a little guy as well.
True.
Sorry,
yes.
that degenerated quickly. So let's give me some highlights, and don't pick the drop a goal. Other than that, because that's obvious.
Stockdale's intercept against Wales.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing because I saw and had seen the overlap, and you're thinking this same feelings as you had, albeit spread out over a longer period of time as they're going through the phases in Paris. This could actually go horribly wrong right now. And it was definitely 2-on-1, if not 3-on-1 out there if he didn't step in and take that. The last 20 minutes at Twickenham was amazing because you knew it was done barring a cataclysmic collapse, and England fans started to leave, and the fields of Athen Ryan, ole, 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 started to ring around the stadium, and then you started to realise exactly how many Irish fans had somehow managed to plunder tickets for the game.
Yeah.
So that was pretty special, because I don't know if an Irish team has ever been in that position and will ever be again in Twickenham.
Not so comfortable.
Yeah.
It was weird because you kept actually thinking they could score 2 quick tries here, it'd be ridiculous, and then it hits the 77th minute, you're like, we've just killed them.
Yeah.
Absolutely killed them.
Just, they were never in the contest. So that was pretty amazing. And then there's other bits like, there would have been a couple of moments after games where you're in the tunnel and you can just see, in France in particular, I was in the tunnel and you could see the relief just on the players' faces. And Joe Schmidt as well, who I met in the tunnel after that first game, and you can only imagine what was going on in his head, because like everybody else watching it was thinking, this is all going to muck now, and it's going to be a very long 6 weeks.
Yeah, it would have been, from their perspective, a disaster if they hadn't won that game. And they were so clearly better than France in that match as well that it would have felt like they'd shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, that you left it behind you. And look, they could have gone on and won the championship anyway, but
it would have been a very big anticlimax.
Yeah, it would have been very similar to 07 when that first day against France just cost us the Grand Slam and cost us the championship. It would have been very hard to take, very hard to stomach.
And you think there's probably reflexively a bunch of changes because the team loses? Maybe there aren't. Maybe he was confident enough. And
yeah, we didn't play well. We didn't play well that day. Yeah, we controlled the game and we certainly dominated possession and territory. And were it not for that very capable penalty that Johnny Sexton missed, we would have been 10 points up with about 13 minutes remaining, and it would have been far easier. And Teddy Thomas' try ultimately wouldn't have mattered an awful lot, but we did not play well. So there wouldn't have been calls for change, but there certainly would have been an awful lot of self-reflection required. And it just would have meant, because it was Italy next, so you would have been in a little more of a position where you could actually ring the changes. It just would have made it, I actually don't really want to think about it, how horrible it would have been, because it just would have been so shit.
Yeah, I know, but there's no harm. It's kind of just like, it helps to remind yourself of the impact of the win, and also the growth that happens in a winning environment and a winning culture. When you start to win, players who are kids look really good because they've learned to be confident and to express themselves. Whereas if they'd lost that game, who knows what the style of play becomes in the aftermath of that. And it's such a knife edge. Like if the crossfield kick to Earls goes bad, Johnny Sexton is a scapegoat. If the drop goal misses, you're like, you're too far out, what are you doing?
I know.
I actually think that Sexton is probably the player of the tournament, but if Conor Murray had got it, I would have been absolutely delighted with that as well. I think that those two are a good bit ahead of where Stockdale was. Stockdale is this amazing, ebullient, the kick and chase and try at Twickenham is an astonishing piece of skill that I didn't know he was capable of, and that's brilliant. But there's a hierarchy there of why do we win the tournament?
Levels of influence.
Precisely. Yeah. And I think that's what's important. You
don't win the tournament without the 7 tries in 5 matches, but at the same time, Stockdale wouldn't have been in that position to score the vast majority of those tries were it not for the brilliance of Sexton and Murray and the donkey work from the pack. But you can see why, in a kind of a public vote, still riding the crest of the wave that was the Grand Slam win at Twickenham, why he would get it. But maybe people who were spending a little more time watching the game and watching the influence of the pivot that is 9 and 10 would think you'll have to. A lot of people could have said Dan Levy was the player of the tournament.
Yeah, I was definitely
James Ryan.
Yeah,
Tyke Furlong if he didn't miss that one game. So we just had so many standout players. But from watching Stockdale, I know you said you didn't think, and I heard you talking about it during the week on OTBAM, that you didn't realise he was capable of that amount of skill. But a few of the tries, the 2 intercepts, okay, if you can catch the ball once you've made the read, everyone's going to finish that because he's quick. But the couple of tries that he scored in the corner that were made look very simple, because of the absolute quality in the pass against Wales that Johnny Sexton flung from right to left. But he does make it so easy. Like I remember when Javier Hernandez got that big goal at the Mestalla for United against Valencia. It was his first Champions League goal, and Ferguson in his post-match interview said, look, it was like shelling peas. And to me, that's what Stockdale looks like when he's scoring tries. He just seems to make it very easy. There's an awful lot of quality going on in around that move, but I think he makes it look easier than it actually is, than it really is.
Look, I'm saying he's absolutely a transcendent talent, and we're absolutely blessed to have him, and there's proper depth now there as well. But it's the influence question that, like, I think that maybe we're in this weird situation where we're terrified that anything might happen to our 9 and 10, and we also take them a little bit for granted. It's this kind of, oh my God, we'll be rubbish if they're ever gone. But I know they're not really the players of the tournament. It's Stockdale is the guy. But it's like, ultimately,
that's a real contradiction in terms, though.
Do you know what I mean?
I think we fear so much for their potential absence that we're in no way taking them for granted.
Then why aren't they the players of the tournament jointly?
Well, I would have had either of those ahead of Jacob Stockdale. So I think the vast majority of fans would never be in a position where they're taking them for granted.
Well, I hope not, because we're living in a very blessed time where the two of them are fully fit and actually playing well at the moment.
Yeah, but we don't know what the rest are capable of. Like, there's no reason why Luke McGrath and Joey Carberry together for a big game couldn't get us over the line. I think that the half an hour or so when you throw in the time that Sexton was off the pitch having his head injury assessed, that 30 minutes is going to stand to Joey Carberry. And the 15 minutes he played in Chicago. Like, these are unbelievable times to be part of an Irish team that's winning historical games and playing at 10, and big moments in those little spells he's on the field for. Big kicks. Yeah, I
definitely would like to see him play like a 10 game stretch at half. But like Leinster have another at half on their books, so they
who's starting this weekend, and Joey's starting. Where's Joey starting? Fullback.
Well, that's what they see him as at the moment. Yeah. So somebody's going to have a little quiet word.
He's the third choice fullback, isn't he? Behind Rob Kearney and Jordan Larmour.
It's hard to know. Like, maybe they see Larmour as a winger, or maybe now that they have an injury at centre, perhaps he ends up at centre.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see the team that is picked for Saracens, because that's it. Chips on the table. We've got to win this game.
It's Kearney, though. It's Kearney and Byrne.
And where everybody else plays.
Or Kearney and Sexton, rather.
And who's playing in the centre?
Yeah, well, that is the question.
We'll see.
Gary Ringrose and one other.
Yeah.
Noel Reid, maybe, who's starting this weekend. He's actually had a very good season. I don't see them pitching Jordan Larmour in, although he's out of the game. Larmour won't be playing in the game against Saracens, so that's one less choice they have, which is a bit of a blow, because you'd love to have seen him at least on the bench for that match, particularly if they need something a bit spectacular and some fireworks. They just came out today, some fireworks to pull the game out of the fire. But
one point before we get to St Brian O'Driscoll, it was obvious on the ref link. Nigel Owen steps onto the field and says, "Ref, I just want you to check on number 6 Green. He was a bit woozy getting up there." And the ref calls over the Irish physio and says, have a go at number 6 there, just have a look, see is he alright. Like, the touch judge just said he was woozy. What's the immediate thing that happens?
The independent match doctor calls a HIA immediately, is what should happen.
What actually happened was the physio went over, had a word. I don't know which of the Irish staff it was, and it was a short word, and the scrum gets called and gets set, and O'Mahony's part of that scrum, and the scrum happens but collapses, and then Nigel Owens goes onto the field and goes, I wasn't just there having the chats. I was like, and then the HIA gets called and he goes off and doesn't come back on. Clearly the HIA doesn't work, and clearly the referee was putting the responsibility onto the Irish medical staff and to the player, which is completely wrong. Like, and I don't understand. Obviously other stories were much bigger stories this week, but like, here we are still at the end of this whole process going, it's been reported to you that somebody's groggy getting up, just send them off.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Nigel Owens got himself obviously involved in a controversial HIA situation in Paris with that farcical development as regards getting Maxime Machinot back on for the last 10 minutes when I think it was Antoine Bello, the replacement fly half, clearly had not suffered a blow to the head. And
he'd done his cruciate.
He had done his knee and he was limping down the tunnel. And Richie Murphy was actually on saying he was almost encroached onto the playing surface and it's an injury to his knee. Like, what's going on here? And Sexton saying to him, no one mentioned HIA, Nigel, until you brought it up.
Yeah.
So his judgment was questionable earlier in the tournament as regards the HIAs, but he clearly saw something in Peter O'Mahony that
and he
didn't like.
O'Mahony didn't come back on, and I don't know, just it didn't feel like they were taking full cognizance of what was being said and not using the information that was available to them. So clearly that system is broken. Let's bring you some Brian O'Driscoll. Here he is talking about what's next for this team.
I don't think it's fair to say that this was a box-ticking exercise because many of the internationals that played it had never won. Well, nearly everyone except for Rob Kearney and Best had never won a Grand Slam. So it's a big deal considering we've only won 3 now in our history. So you don't want to gloss over that quickly, but you do get the sense that this is ultimately a stepping stone to something great, to something big in Japan next year. And I heard Rob Kearney make reference to that.
Just going to say, put it this way: when you were doing your interviews in 2009 on the pitch in Cardiff, it was about the moment.
100%.
It was noticeable that Rob Kearney, enjoying the moment, did also put the win into the context of the next 18 months. Now, I appreciate he's maybe older and maybe the younger guys were going, well, hey, but in 2009 there was no one even for the World Cups.
We did not give it a thought. Yeah. We did not give it a thought. So that makes you think that this has been talked about as part of the bigger plan.
Yeah.
That this is an aspect en route to doing something special and not just getting to a semi-final. I know we're not in the greatest place in the world to be able to be excessively confident about World Cups off the back of where we've been, but you do feel as though this isn't a team that wants to go and do something no other Irish team has done before and get to a semi-final. These want to get to a final and they want to win a World Cup. And
well, if you're number 2 in the world,
well, you've got a chance, right? You'd have to think you've got a chance. And also the fact that the best team in the world, the double World Cup holders from 2011 and 15, have been beaten in the last 18 months or 2 years. 18 months. So it's not that unthinkable thought of, gosh, if you came across the All Blacks in a World Cup in some capacity, how would you deal with it? I think there is a confidence, and I definitely don't think it's an arrogance. I think it's a confidence that is breathing through this team that, you know what, if we stay the course and do what we can, or what we have been doing, that we have a great chance. The reality is we still need a lot of luck. You know, you can't. We got luck against France to win this slam. You need luck.
And you don't want Conor Murray getting injured. You don't want Johnny Sexton. There's a few irreplaceables, I presume. 11 of the 23 just on Saturday are 26 years old or under.
Yeah. I think probably in 2009, if it had been 2010 that they'd won, they would have been within that World Cup cycle and it would have been a bit more obvious. And also it was the first one it was the first proper championship that group had ever won. So
there was a number of factors which made it very understandable that the celebrations were quite muted at the full-time whistle in Twickenham. I thought there was no absolute ecstasy, guys almost besides themselves with disbelief.
The pylon happened in Paris.
Yeah, exactly. They had their football celebration in the Stade de France. So there was that. You're right, it's another 12 months further back in 2009. So the World Cup was just so far from their thinking. Another factor is that it was year 1 for that coaching ticket, whereas Joe Schmidt has been in place since 2013. And the age profile of the team was very different. Yeah, there was young guys like Luke Fitzgerald, for example, Rob Kearney. But at the same time, there were a lot of guys who were either at their peak or going beyond that position in their careers. And the key one, you've mentioned it, they hadn't won a championship since it was shared in the 80s.
Yeah.
So this is the 3rd championship in 5 seasons. Winning a championship is old news at this stage for a lot of the players. A lot of them now have 3 medals. We know that Kearney best of 4. So there's a whole number of reasons why this just seems to be the starting point or midpoint in the development cycle of this squad.
The slew of contracts that were signed in the immediate aftermath of that, it was interesting that they waited until the the result had come through for them to announce those contracts. But it does feel to me like certain key individuals need to be like given no game time or a long block of period away or just the right amount of time, and this is the balancing act now. But particularly at 9 and 10, like what will McGrath and whoever is the 10 that they ultimately end up going with? I mean, I hope it's Joey Carby, because you just see the silky skills that he has. But like next year's Six Nations, do we really benefit from winning the Six Nations and another Grand Slam with 9 and 10 as Sexton and Murray, hoping that they withstand 6 games in 5 weeks? I'm not saying you give up the chance of winning a Grand Slam. You still try and win a Grand Slam.
Well, I'd be focusing more on the trip to Australia. Like, if you think of the trip to South Africa, Paddy Jackson put himself in a brilliant position. Now, for obvious reasons, he's been unable to play for Ireland this championship, but we felt, probably for the first time since O'Gara and Humphreys were battling for that position at 10, that you had a backup that you were actually willing to put your faith in if Sexton went down. We need to get back into that position. So the only reason Jackson was in that position is because he played some really good rugby in that tour of South Africa. There's 3 tests in Australia against, like, by no means the greatest Australian team of all time. So we need to put Carberry in that position for at least 1, if not 2 of the tests. I know Sexton this week has said that he wants to be down there.
Yeah, but of course he's going to say it.
But shouldn't really be his decision. If you and I have already mentioned in the last couple of weeks on the show that if they get to a Pro 14 final, like, there's a 3-week turnaround to the first test. Like, you can't have Sexton starting in that first game if there's that short a turnaround, particularly on the back of a Lions tour.
Do you give Sexton 6 months off now and say come back for the next November internationals now, like, and say, oh well, okay, so European Cup would be great, but actually we've got 2 out halves who can play, and if they can't get us through a European Cup,
well, your career is very short, and
there's a World Cup.
Yeah, but like winning a Champions Cup,
it'd be great. It would be great.
And
he's got.
And if it's 6 months, like maybe not being in a position to help Leinster in the first couple of rounds of next season's Champions Cup, I think that's a bit extreme.
But precisely the type of pressure that you need to put, if, like, when you look at what happens to the All Blacks when Dan Carter goes down early and then his replacement goes down, and it's Stephen Donald, like, who is drinking beers and fishing, like, that's very likely. You look at, like, so we had 2 of the lads in who ended up playing in the game against Argentina on a Saturday panel 3 weeks out from the Argentina game. We had them in studio, they weren't even in camp because of the way that the injuries happened in the World Cup, and it's going to be much harder in Japan. So I don't know, it just feels like something weird and wonderful and an outside genius piece of something has to happen to make sure that we're ready for this.
Well, I definitely give them the summer off. I don't think Murray's going to be in that position where he's going to get the summer off. I don't think he wants it either. But Sexton as well, like, how do you tell him you're not going to Australia? I guess you just have to tell him. But like, he's that kind of a character that wants to keep playing. He'll know that his career's finite. Look at Jamie Heaslip a year out. A year ago he's in the warm-up for the England game, and then he doesn't play again.
Yeah.
So it can all end tomorrow. So Sexton will be thinking, well, I'm only going to get so many caps. I might only have another 20 caps in me, 25 caps in me.
Look,
I want to play in Australia. I want to be part of an Irish team.
And you know that if he was listening to this,
ever to win in Australia,
he would be shouting, "Shut up!
I know.
Stop talking nonsense."
Yeah. Stop putting ideas in Joe Schmidt's head as if we have some kind of influence over what might go on in the head of Joe Schmidt.
And yet, at the same time, like, I mean, Tadhg Furlong's in the meat of his career at the moment, and like has another 8 years of being this brilliant because he's still unbelievably young for that position. But like, I would definitely be giving him less and less minutes over the next 12 months and ramp them back up around about May 2019.
Yeah, it's just so far away. In rugby terms, it's so far away given the level of attrition involved. Like, we could mind Sexton and wrap him in cotton wool between now and then he just goes down in the first minute.
That happens, but you've taken the risk, and it was a good risk. And if you've done that,
but then you'd be accused of putting him in a position whereby he wasn't conditioned.
But you condition them properly, so you definitely, like, there's enough science around.
Really, only game time conditions you for that.
Yeah, so you play. They'll play 10 games they'll play 10 games between the end of next year's Six Nations and the start of the World Cup, or they'll play 6 games and they'll play 60 minutes in those games, and we'll take them off, and there'll be no sub appearances, there'll be nothing. It'll be like, you've got to get ready for these.
Well, it's not like Schmidt doesn't know this. Like, no one was burnt more by what happened in that quarter final than he, and he has put the building blocks in place since then to try and ensure that he's not in the same position again. The problem is the two positions we discuss, like, it's not quite so extreme and apparent at tight head, but we're talking about 9 and 10 right now. They're just so good that it's almost understandable that the gap between the number 2, 9 and 10 is going to be significant, because these guys, you've arguably got the greatest 9 and the greatest 10 in the history of Irish rugby.
Yeah,
so
it's not bad.
How many countries are in a position where they have O'Gara and Humphreys going at it, or for that short spell where you have Sexton and O'Gara going at it? Not many.
And we're not even looking for that. We're just looking for somebody who can come in and feel confident that when they're called upon, it's going to be fine.
Well, we had that with Madigan, didn't we? We were confident. Came on against the French and did really well, kicked his goals.
Played badly against Argentina.
But he came on, but you would think that...
Close enough, because he played that last previous season at Leinster, most of his rugby either at 12 or off the bench.
He was coming into a team that had lost half its personnel.
Sure, but the point is that they hadn't conditioned him to be prepared to start at 10. He hadn't played enough games in Six Nations starting at 10. He hadn't started enough games for Leinster at 10. So what we're doing is replicating those same conditions if you have Sexton and Byrne playing 10, but actually the Ireland sub 10 never gets game time there.
Yeah, like Ross Byrne must be looking at it all and going, well, I should be the deputy standoff.
Well, I'd say he's thinking, I've got a chance here, you know?
Because right now there is no real competition for that outside of Joey Carberry. There's no one putting their hand up, really. There's nobody in Munster. Blendell's gone now for the rest of the season. He will be eligible, but there's no way. You couldn't see him having a part to play in the World Cup, just the way things are right now. You just couldn't.
If he was to play and if the neck injury clears up, and obviously we wish him all the best. He's an unbelievably nice person and has had a horrible run of form and luck, not a form. If he was to have 8 or 9 months playing as well as he could do, then he could be right there, you know, because he's been around the squad, and like he has that All Black New Zealand culture where he completely understands exactly what we're trying to do. So anyway, I'm getting the wink from JP. That means I'm on a promise, or there's an ad break coming, one or the other.
Or both.
Which is it? Hey, who knows? That won't be happening in front of the camera. All right, Dave, congratulations on the brilliant Six Nations. Well done.
I appreciate it, thank you.
So that's our rugby coverage tonight. We will be talking NFL in the next hour. We've got Rob Ryan, whose dad was Buddy Ryan, the legendary coach of the defence in the Chicago Bears in 1985, and of course twin brother of Rex. And we also are speaking with Kenny Cunningham about the football, because Ireland have been in action. I know some of you might have missed this, but Ireland were playing a big friendly tonight in Turkey, and it reminded us all of the massive party that we're missing out on in the World Cup.